sharing my screen, turn off my camera, and we're going to get going. So I hope everybody enjoys this session. Let's see, Christine Ragsdale.
Yes.
I know you're used to this. You got to always be ready to give me a verbal response. And then Michelle, too, you're going to be asked for some verbal responses from time to time. So if you want to leave yourselves unmuted, that would be cool.
Okay.
Christine, can you see the slides?
Yes, we see it.
All right, perfect. We already went over this. We already went over this. So participants, please be ready for some note-taking, pen and paper or digital format, completely up to you. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's see, sorry, did I?
You have not turned off your camera.
That's what I do want to turn it off because I really just feel like I'm a distraction sometimes. So I am going to turn it off. Okay, there we go. I'm coming back. Oh, it's just never easy, is it? It's just never easy.
No.
Okay.
And the slideshow, Amy, will be giving to everyone at the end. Is that right? Or
well, it is uploaded into the TLN Hub. It's in the folder, so all the participants at this point do have access.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, if they want to reference this after the presentation, they do all have access. So let's start with this graphic that I am willing to bet perhaps most people on this call have seen this graphic at this point. It's become a pretty popular visual metaphor for defining the difference between equality and equity. But I'll tell you what, in my opinion, this graphic never gets old. It's always relevant, and it's exceedingly meaningful regarding our work with students. So as we look at this and talk through it, I think it's really important that we're able to define equality and equity. So equality, the dictionary definition is correspondence in quantity, degree, value, rank, or ability. Equity is not the same thing. Equity is defined in the dictionary as the quality of being fair or impartial, something that is fair and just. So in terms of the visual representation, take a look at the fence. The fence that separates those spectators from the game taking place. Think for a second or two about what that fence might represent. I would say it represents, in the context of education, I would say perhaps it represents barriers to learning. Sometimes barriers are within our control in terms of addressing them or removing them. Other times barriers are not within our control. What we can control, though, is how we support students. So take a look at those boxes that the people are standing on both sides. Think about those boxes in the context of education and instruction. Think of maybe one word that represents those boxes in the context of education or instruction. When you think of a word, type the word in the chat. And I can't see the chat right now, you guys. So I'm gonna have Christine Ragsdale share some of your responses with me as they start coming into the chat.
We've got resources, supports, scaffolding, modifications. Several people said scaffolds.
I love it.
Yep.
All of those things are true. Every single one of those things is correct. Awesome. So let's move on. All right, culturally relevant teaching practices will make your classroom more equitable. And Christine, would you read the text inside the poster for me?
Fair isn't everyone getting the same thing. Fair is everyone getting what they need in order to be successful.
You're an awesome academic risk taker. Thank you. Oh, okay. So 4 fundamental threads that are critical components of culturally rich classrooms are: first, building relational capacity. And boy, has this one been particularly critical right now while we're teaching virtually and just don't have that face-to-face contact with kids. Second, empowering student voice. Third, holding high expectations. 4, respecting experiences. For the purposes of our time together today, we are focused on holding high expectations. And yes, this is a component of a culturally rich classroom. And guys, one thing I want to throw in, because sometimes this gets neglected, and I was reminded of this in a session I was in quite some time ago about culturally relevant teaching and culturally rich classrooms. There is a culture that perhaps we don't include in our conversations when we're talking about culture. We just need to remember that youths themselves are their own culture. So yes, culture can speak to race and ethnicity and other things like that, but we also need to remember we are working with a unique culture in terms of our students' age group, the youth culture. So keep that in mind, as well as other components of culture. All right, holding high expectations. Christine Ragsdale, would you read this quote from Avid for the group?
Culturally relevant teaching practices inform instruction through a cultural lens that recognizes that although learning structures differ across cultures, expectations should not be lowered.
Exactly. I don't think any of us could have said that any better. All right, so expectations as they relate to academics and supporting students. I need to have my 2 resource teachers, Michelle and Christine, both unmuted, because we're going to do a choral reading from this slide. I'm going to read the text in black, and you guys are going to read the text in blue. Having high expectations for
all students
while
providing support
through effective instruction maximizes student learning by making
relevant connections
between the studied content and students' lives. We'll take a look at the concepts of
rigor and high expectations.
All right. Thank you, choral readers.
I'm glad
awesome.
we practiced.
Yes, thank you so much. You guys did a great job. Okay. Rigor and culturally relevant teaching, sometimes referred to as CRT. One of Avid's core beliefs is that if schools hold students accountable to rigorous coursework and provide the needed support, they can and will succeed. So relative to that statement, be thinking back to that equality versus equity visual, and the fact that we identified those boxes representing support, scaffolding, assistance, etc. And there were some other great words you guys also included. All right, now is your first opportunity for some writing. This is going to be a timed written reflection. All participants, you have 90 seconds to respond to the following prompt on your own paper. Please be prepared and willing to share when time's up. So the prompt is, what is rigor? And I'm setting the timer right now. You're responsible for your own written response. Time starts now. Okay, everybody, put your pens or pencils down or stop typing. Your time is up. Okay, since I'm still in a mode where I can't see everybody, I would love for either Christine or Michelle or both to kind of assist with this, because I think you guys can at least see a few people on your end. I would love for 2 or 3 academic risk takers to be willing to unmute themselves and either share exactly what they wrote, or just share a couple of ideas from what they wrote in response to what is rigor.
Well, we have 2 volunteers so far, Ella Kari and Lisa. So Ella, why don't you start?
Okay, I said, rigor is expecting students to engage in complex thinking and evaluative practices rather than basic recall and regurgitation. Or, if I can Google the answer, the question isn't worth asking.
Nice.
I love that. Thank you for being an academic risk taker and being willing to share. That was awesome. Next person.
Lisa.
All righty. So I wrote, rigor is a level of difficulty that is both challenging and achievable. We need to ask ourselves as educators how to make those learning goals achievable by all learners.
Awesome. Thank you for being an academic risk taker and being willing to share your thoughts and your ideas. We're going to move along to share AVID's definition of rigor. Michelle Thompson-Lloyd, would you read this definition aloud for the group?
I certainly will. AVID defines rigor as using inquiry-based, collaborative strategies to challenge and engage students in content, resulting in increasingly complex levels of understanding.
You're awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now here's a thought prompt. And a thought prompt is literally that. I'm going to set a timer and give you time to think about comparing your definition with AVID's. What are similarities and or differences? You have 20, you don't have to write or anything. Just get your thinking caps on and think about that prompt. What are similarities and or differences between your definition of rigor and AVID's definition of rigor? Okay, awesome. You guys, if you've never given your students a thought prompt and literally just timed them in terms of thinking about something, give it a try. They don't always have to be reading something or writing something or discussing something. So to prompt that thinking is really important. But then I would encourage you to make sure they're always prepped to share their ideas and thoughts with the rest of the class. All right, so now what are some things we know about rigor? We're going to take a quiz, or it can be kind of interpreted as a poll, and hopefully this will just be kind of fun for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and come back to the meet, and I'm going to turn my camera back on. And those of you with your cameras off at this time, if you're more comfortable keeping them off, that's fine too. If you don't mind either way, when we come back, I would love to see everybody. So if you're willing to put your cameras back on, that would be really fun. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I am going to give some statements, true or false statements, statements about rigor. Your role, your task, is to determine whether the statement about rigor is true or false. This is going to be done in a poll. And so in the top right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little triangle, square, and circle. When the poll prompt is ready, you're going to have a green dot there, and then you'll be able to open it, and you'll be able to see the statement, and then you'll be able to provide your response. We're going to go through a series of these with some brief discussion after each one. And so I am going to prep the first. It takes just a few seconds to get each statement prepped. And then, of course, T is for true, F is for false. So I'm going to launch the first statement right now. You can open it and then respond. And then I'm going to share the responses with you as well. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Quite a few more people have to share their response. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the responses now. So you should be able to see how many people submitted true and how many people submitted false. So we've got a big majority responding false for that statement about rigor. You're correct. Rigor is not more work. But I think Christine Ragsdale might have a thought about this as it relates to teacher versus student.
Yeah, so we had a quick discussion about this, and I said, well, more work for whom? Was it more work for the students? Or is it more work for the teacher? And so, what do you guys think? We are talking about more work for students, yes, but any thoughts on this?
I think it's often more work for teachers in the sense that it's often not the work that comes pre-prepared with your textbook. And so therefore you're doing more inventive and innovative things, and that is always more work for the teacher. And of course it can be more work for students, but it's not necessarily inherently more work for students. It's different work.
Right, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. That's really important. Yeah, of course, the more teachers learn multiple strategies for increasing rigor, of course, it's going to take a little bit more prep time, okay? But just in and of itself, giving students more work to do doesn't mean that the content or the skill level is any more rigorous. Okay.
Right. Valerie had her hand up too. You have a quick statement?
I was just going to kind of say what Amy Marr said. It's just a matter of changing your mindset as a teacher and kind of learning a new path of prepping. And in the beginning, it can be more work, but then once you kind of settle into that new mindset, it kind of starts to balance.
Exactly. Thank you.
And Jessica had her hand up.
Yeah, I was thinking the work comes on knowing your students, because what's rigorous for one student may not be rigorous for another.
That's true.
So it's knowing your students and differentiating to where they're at.
Bingo. Okay, so I think the second statement was launched in your poll section. So go ahead and read that statement and respond. Keep those responses coming. Very interesting. Keep those responses coming. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the responses with everybody. Look at this.
This is a great discussion point.
Look at this. This is a great discussion prompt. Okay, rigor is difficulty. I actually took out a word from the original statement I had prepared. I took out the word level, or the words level of, to kind of make it a little more vague. Would your thinking change if the statement was rigor is level of difficulty? You probably just want to know what the actual answer is.
Give us the answer.
It's false. Rigor isn't defined by level of difficulty. And I think going back to one of the teacher's comments for the prior prompt is really important. What challenges one student in terms of difficulty may be very different related to what challenges another student in terms of level of difficulty. What we have to do is provide that scaffolding so that the level of difficulty just increases and increases and increases as work becomes more challenging, more rigorous.
It's really about their understanding.
Right, right.
Versus the difficulty of the level of difficulty.
Exactly, exactly. All right, next poll question. Go for it. Keep those responses coming. Keep those responses coming. This one, no room for debate. Rigor is challenging and motivating. Absolutely. So we all agree on that. I'm going to launch the next statement. Keep those responses coming. Another interesting one. Keep those responses coming. This one, people are, it's more vague, not as much clarity as those prior two statements. Keep those responses coming. Okay, here come the results. Now, isn't that fascinating? A group filled with educators, and it's almost an even split. Rigor is knowledge and skills. All right, drum roll. The answer is false. Rigor doesn't mean just knowledge and skills. You want to talk through this one?
Yes.
Okay. Start us off, Christine, because we all had an interesting conversation about this one before we started.
We did. I just keep going back to it's about the student's understanding. And so rigor is really the scaffolds that's the learning aid to the student's understanding. I've got some hands raised already.
Let's hear it. You facilitate the discussion, because I definitely want to hear what people say.
I saw Taryn's hand raised right away.
I was just going to say that rigor doesn't require knowledge and skills, not really, because you're using an inquiry-based model. So it should be accessible to all skill levels, because you're helping them to build the skill of inquiring and discussion, and you need to create modifications that make it accessible. So oral response, artistic responses, using input charts to show what you're trying to get them to learn in a variety of ways. Because you can do rigor with an ELD class or a special ed class. You can do it in any class with any group of kids, no matter what. And so I think it's really important to make sure that teachers don't think it's exclusively one group of students who are able to have rigorous classes.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for contributing. It's really looking at and taking them where they are and then helping them advance individually. Ella, you had your hand up, and Val, you did too.
So I agree with everything Taryn said and marked true instead, because I believe it means rigor includes knowledge and skills, because it can include it. I agree, you don't have to have it. I get frustrated by people who think you just have to keep asking kids to memorize things before you ask them to do something more interesting with it. So it can be that a skill is rigorous or that knowledge is rigorous, but it's not exclusively those things.
Thank you. Valerie.
I just wanted to kind of talk about being an AVID teacher myself. So I teach AVID, and I have a lot of students in special ed who are AVID students that were afraid to take my class because rigor is the focal point of AVID. And that's what I have to explain to my parents and my students who are, have IEPs, that rigor isn't hard, rigor isn't extra work. It's just the tools and scaffolds to help you embrace your depth of knowledge. And most of my special ed students take my tools from AVID, apply it to their other classes, and they do great. They have straight A's. They've never really thought about how they can think so complexly because they feel like they can't, because the definition of rigor is very misguided in a lot of parents and teachers and students. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all for your contributions to this discussion. That was awesome. We're going to do one more.
Melissa had her hand up too.
Who did?
Melissa.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
missed
go for
that.
it.
Hi, I keep filling in the blank. With each of these polls, when I looked at rigor as knowledge and skills, I did rigor is building knowledge and skills. So you start with knowledge and skills and you build on them. So I agree that it's true that you go in with a set of knowledge and skills and you build on it.
Well, certainly the addition of just that word, the insertion of the word building into the statement, I think then would definitely make it true. Okay.
Yep. So
All
with
right.
each of these statements, I keep adding this little fill in the blank.
Yeah. All right. One more, you guys. One more. Here it comes. Keep those responses coming. All right. Not surprisingly, really not too vague in terms of that statement. Absolutely, rigor is cognitive engagement. Okay, awesome. We're going to shift a little bit. I'm going to turn off my camera, go back to sharing my screen, and get back to some slides. Thank you, guys. That was fun. We good with the slides, Christine?
Yes. You see
Okay,
everything.
awesome. Okay, awesome. Guys, this slide is very busy. It's filled with lots of text that I don't expect you to read right now. And I'm just going to summarize really quickly so you understand why I did put this slide into the presentation. We're focusing on equity. We're focusing on making our classrooms equitable through the use of culturally relevant teaching practices. We're talking about how holding high expectations is a culturally relevant teaching practice. High expectations fall into the top right quadrant of this graphic. In the middle, in the circle, the statement says, students are ready for rigor and independent learning. High expectations is just one component of culturally relevant teaching. That high expectations alone aren't going to make students ready for rigor. But when the teacher does have high expectations, along with a combination of all of these other things, students are ready for rigor and independent learning. So another time when when you have an opportunity perhaps to refer back to these slides later, do take some time to read through these bullets with some more attention, and it'll pull together all aspects of this presentation today. All right, let's shift gears a little bit out of rigor and kind of back into practicing high expectations. We're gonna focus our efforts on an activity around the Pygmalion Effect, which is a form of self-fulfilling prophecy. The expectations educators have for their students directly influence student performance. When we have preconceived expectations for students, developed from internal beliefs or external sources, or both for that matter, students pick up on those expectations and will meet them, whether the result is success or failure. I like the little graphic in the on this slide. That's a great visual representation of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If this person thinks, if high expectations have been placed upon this person such that this person has high expectations of herself, there's potential for, she's seeing herself as a superhero. Obviously, in reality, she's not a superhero, but the shadow that's reflected on the wall is a superhero. So that's kind of a cool representation of the power of expectations, not only the way others see us, but how we potentially see ourselves. So here's another thought prompt, but it also involves just a little bit of writing. Think about the students who you currently teach. Think about your full roster over the course of an entire day. In your notes, take a few seconds and write down the names of your 2 top performing students, and then also write down the names of your 2 lowest performing students. Keep these students in mind throughout the next activity. Okay, now that you have the names of those students written down, we're going to send you off to a timed independent reading. And to access this text, Christine is going to put the link in the chat. And you guys, I know some of you at this point are probably really tech savvy and you prefer to do digital notes. If that's something you want to do, you're going to have to download this document to your own, like to your desktop, and open it so that you can take digital notes. Otherwise, just on paper, jot down words and phrases that stand out or raise a question in your mind. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 4 minutes right now. Take a few more seconds to access the reading using the link in the chat. If there are any questions, please direct those to Christine Ragsdale right now.
Hopefully everyone can access it.
Hopefully everyone can. That's the goal. The timer has started, so please read independently. Jot down some words and phrases that stand out or raise a question. Quiet reading, and so we'll come back together as a group when my timer goes off. Go ahead. Okay, everybody, your 4 minutes is up. If you weren't able to finish finish all of the text, no problem, that's fine. You are going to have an opportunity to discuss this in a breakout room in just a minute. And as you were reading, I realized that I skipped an important slide, this one, with some background information on the Pygmalion Effect. Of course, it's best practice to provide your audience some background information before sending them off to read something. The fact that I skipped that was a mistake on my part. I apologize for not giving you that information first, but I'm going to depend on you to go back and read that another time based on your own interest. So let's go ahead and move forward to our discussion and breakouts. We'll go over these instructions first and then I'll come back to the main meeting, and then we'll put you guys in breakouts, and you'll be able to see this instruction slide as well. So, in what ways did Professor Higgins' high expectations contribute to Eliza's success? Were his high expectations focused on his abilities or Eliza's? So start off with that question, and you'll have several minutes to get through the rest of these discussion prompts. So definitely during breakouts, unmute yourselves. Do make sure your cameras are on so you guys can all enjoy each other as if you were in a sitting around a table together. The person with the shortest hair in the group is the facilitator. So that facilitator is responsible for kind of keeping an eye on the time and keeping the group focused on the discussion prompts. You guys are going to have 10 minutes to discuss all these prompts with your peers in relation to the text you just read. So here we are back in our main meeting. Go ahead and get prepped by turning your cameras on. Christine, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and share the link in the chat to that instruction slide.
Yes, it's already in there. You guys can grab it.
Oh, you're awesome. And it's going to take me just a few brief seconds to get you out in your breakout rooms. Let's see, looks like we have about 30 people. So we'll do this. All right, I'm going to send you off right now. So enjoy some discussion time with your peers. Have fun. See you back here in a bit. All right, everybody's starting to come back. We'll give this a few seconds so we get everybody back. All right. Still got a couple more coming back. Awesome. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm taking a look at the clock. Normally, because it's best practice, we would debrief for a minute or two as a whole group to get some summaries from what each breakout room discussed. We just don't have time to do that today, but I am confident the conversations were rich and valuable and thought-provoking. I just know that happened. So let's go back to these slides real quick, just a couple more to go, and we will be wrapping up today's session very quickly. Okay, so this does say a 3-minute timed writing, personal reflection. I'm gonna shift that. I'm gonna modify that to just a thought prompt. Okay, we're just gonna do a thought prompt. You don't have to write, and unfortunately, we don't have 3 minutes for this right now. But I do want you to return to your list of your 2 top performing students and 2 lowest performing students. And think about the following questions. Why did you choose these students? Why are they on your list where they are? Do your perceptions or beliefs about them influence their success? What expectations do you have about your ability to teach students who don't get it? I'm starting a 30-second timer just for thinking. All right, see if you can wrap up your thoughts to those prompts in an organized way in your head. And here we go for today's final task. And then I'm gonna stop presenting and come back to the meat. Using 7 words, and exactly 7, you guys. Using 7 words, draft a statement summarizing your biggest takeaway from today's session. Type your 7-word statement in the chat and have an awesome afternoon. Seven words exactly. It's a challenge. Asking students to craft 7-word statements adds a little rigor to just write a sentence or write a statement. So give it a try. It's harder than you think. Rigor is a way to increase confidence. I love it.
Golf clap.
Yes, golf clap. Got to be kind of quiet. Not creating hardship, but accessible challenge. Oh, I left rigor off. Rigor, colon. That was very clever. Not creating hardship, but accessible challenge. High expectations are critical for student success. You guys are awesome. Rigorous learning environments can happen online too. Boy, isn't that critically true right now? You guys are great. Thank you so much for your attention, for your engagement, and for being here today. We appreciate it. Keep those responses coming up in the chat. I'm going to stop recording.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.